In a world wrestling with meaning, where faith confronts freedom and the soul struggles beneath the weight of its own desires, Dostoevsky invites us into a reckoning. In the brothers Karamazov, the Grand Inquisitor stands as a symbol of power, a voice proclaiming that humanity is too weak for true freedom, that the comfort of authority is more precious than the terror of choice. But what happens when a person has all the freedom in the world, but does nothing with it? Enter the superfluous man, the figure wandering through Russian literature, intelligent yet inert, longing yet paralyzed, a stranger to himself and to everyone else. Tonight we descend into both, a journey through silence, temptation, and the unbearable weight of freedom. Even with intellect, wit, and sensibility, the superfluous man accomplishes nothing. He observes, he judges, he feels, and then he falters. He is alienated not only from society, but from himself. Across Europe, he takes many forms: the tragic Byronic hero, a mal de siècle character in Chateaubriand's novel, orphaned by the death of Napoleon; Goethe's Werther, filled with Weltschmerz, or world weariness, perhaps disillusioned with failed German unification; Russia's superfluous man, be it in Pushkin's Eugene Onegin or Lermontov's Pechorin, succumbed by tragic existential crisis. He too feels alienated from the autocracy of Nicholas I after the failure of the Decembrist revolt, that would have, no doubt, provided employment to many a liberal-minded youth. Portugal's Vencidos da Vida, or Beaten by Life, weary of the stagnation of the Chartist oligarchy and the nepotistic regime of the Marquis of Tomar, Costa Cabral, descended into elegant decadence, just like the Victorian dandy. Spanish painters and authors of the Generación del 98 searched for meaning after the defeat of Spain in the Spanish-American War of 1898. And Italy's inetto, or inept man, fell into neurotic self-analysis caused by the failed dreams of an incomplete risorgimento. Into this European stage of restless, disillusioned souls, Dostoevsky drops his Russian tale, The Karamazov Family. Three brothers, three lives, three ways of wrestling with existence. Dmitri, or Mitya, is the first superfluous type. He's passionate, self-destructive but noble, heir to the Byronic temperament. Ivan is the intellectual, questioning cynic. He embodies the rational, superfluous man. And Alexei, or Alyosha, the youngest brother, is the anti-superfluous man, spiritual and mystical. And it is within Ivan's restless and questioning mind that Dostoevsky stages one of the most haunting and profound episodes of the novel, the story of the Grand Inquisitor. The Grand Inquisitor appears in Book 5 of the Brothers Karamazov, as a story Ivan tells to Alyosha during a late-night conversation. The scene is set in 16th century Seville, during the height of the Spanish Inquisition. Christ returns quietly to earth, performing miracles among the people, and the crowds recognize him in awe outside the famous cathedral in Seville. But the Grand Inquisitor has this heretic arrested and imprisoned, and the parable begins. It begins when the Grand Inquisitor decides to visit Christ in his prison cell at night. When he first sees Christ, there is no fear or anger from Christ, only silence. The Grand Old Inquisitor is struck internally by the presence of Christ. He recognizes him. Interestingly, he goes on to reprimand Christ. For after his baptism by St. John the Baptist, Jesus was tempted with 3 temptations by the devil. After completing 40 days and 40 nights of fasting in the Judean desert, Christ refused all 3. The Grand Inquisitor reprimands Christ for not accepting any of them. Christ refused to turn stones into bread to relieve his hunger. By refusing to give mankind this miracle, said the Grand Inquisitor, Christ deprived humans the comfort of bread, the comfort of security, and instead cursed them with the spiritual freedom of an unchanged stone. Christ rejected the second temptation, to throw himself from the pinnacle of the temple and rely on angels to break his fall. Through this, said the Grand Inquisitor, Christ deprived humans of mystery, or rather of their religious spectacle, of certainty, forcing them to live a life filled with doubt. Finally, Christ refused to worship the tempter in return for all of the kingdoms of the world. By this, Christ deprived humanity of authority, of somebody to obey unquestioningly. Christ denied what humanity needed to be with Christ: miracle, mystery, and authority, and relied instead on the self sacrifice, purity of heart, and love of humanity to choose his path. This, according to the Grand Inquisitor, was inhumane. This would inevitably condemn the vast majority of souls who are too weak, frightened, and sinful to choose the path of Christ purely out of free will. By giving human spiritual freedom, Christ has demanded too much of the human race and abandoned him. The Church, therefore, undertook the task of correcting Christ's mistake. The Grand Old Inquisitor discloses that the Church accepted what Christ rejected from the devil and gave it to humanity: miracle, mystery, and authority. The Church, or the Grand Inquisitor, provided humans the solace they needed, tragically sacrificing his own salvation. He sees this as an act of compassion, saving people from their own freedom. But there's something strange about the Grand Inquisitor. Deep down, he still believes in the innocent beauty and mystery of Christ. He reprimands Christ the prisoner, but he seems to justify himself before Christ the judge. The miracle, mystery, and authority that he claims to provide is still in the name of Christ. Fundamentally, he still believes in Christ, just at a distance. And how does Christ respond? He stays silent, and when the Grand Inquisitor finishes his monologue, he stands up and kisses the old man's bloodless lips. Christ responds rational argument with divine love, mysticism, and forgiveness. His kiss cracks rational argument. He does not force himself on the Grand Inquisitor and gifts him the very thing the Grand Inquisitor accuses him of cursing humans with: freedom to choose. The Grand Inquisitor leaves Christ's cell, but he leaves his door open. When Ivan finishes telling the tale to his brother Alyosha, Alyosha stands up and kisses his brother's cynical lips and leaves the dark, candlelit room. But what if Christ did speak? What would he say? If Christ had accepted the first temptation and taken the abundance of bread, wouldn't humans crave for the purity and simplicity of stone? Is this not the damning condition of the superfluous man? A man filled with the plenitude of bread, but devoid of the spiritual dignity of a stone. Had Christ accepted the second temptation? Had he provided humans their mystery? Would this truly be mystery, or simply a religious spectacle that would leave humans in awe? There would be no faith as there would be no freedom, merely awe. But if Christ had provided the miracle and the spectacle and forced humans to be in total and perfect communion with God, could this union with the divine be so perfect so as to eliminate the need for further transcendence or true mystery? Christ might argue that communion with God involves an act of love and not dry obedience. And love means devotion, self-renunciation, and this must be chosen. For if it is not chosen, then it is not love. And to choose, humans must have their own identity, and to have their own identity, they must have freedom. And here, Dostoevsky joins two tragedies into one. The Grand Inquisitor fears freedom. He replaces it with authority. The superfluous man wastes freedom. He replaces it with despair. Ivan stands at the crossroads between the two, brilliant enough to see the truth, but too wounded to choose it. Alyosha's kiss rejects the two failed responses to freedom: the authority of the Inquisitor and the paralysis of the superfluous man. But in Alyosha's kiss lies the answer.